Okay, Foundation of Pre-Cal 10, let's get after it. Here we go. What everybody wants to learn about how to earn money. So ways of earning. Now, there are a whole bunch of different ways you can earn money in life. We're going to cover a few here. Yes, some of them might seem straightforward, but there are some important lessons here you could learn with a bunch of this stuff. So let's have a look. First thing we're going to look at is hourly wage. Hourly wage is dead easy. If you think about how much you make, the units are important. Remember, you make an hourly wage. You make dollars per hour. That is a ratio. That is division. So how do you get that? If you make $11.35 an hour, so here's a way to consider it. You make $11.35 per 1 hour. How much do you make after 6 hours? Well, I just want to be painstaking here. Now, I know a lot of you just like, oh, easy, you just multiply. And yes, you do just multiply. But the reason why you end up with only a dollar amount here is because you have dollars per hour and then you have times hours. And hours cancel with hours, just like units cancel, just like factors cancel. So you end up with 1135 times 6. The only units you have left are dollars. So you make $68.10. So calculating hourly wage, I'm sure you can all handle that, but I figure let's show it here. Now, here's where the units come in handy. If you made $92 and you worked 8 hours, well, yeah, that's $92 per 8 hours, but you want to know per 1 hour. So how do you get that? Well, you just do this division, because essentially if you divide that by 8, you divide that by 8, that's what you're going to be doing, right? It would give you a 1 hour on the bottom. So do that division, 92 divided by 8. And in this case, you'll notice the units don't cancel out because you want $1,150 per hour. So your units stay. Units tell the story. They really help you understand that you're doing the calculation properly. There's so much that goes into understanding what you're doing and not just doing it, because you can just crunch numbers into a calculator all day, but you want to make sure that things are staying the way they should. Now, things get a little bit more tricky when we talk time and a half and double time, but really not much. So little disclaimer, double time, time and a half, it varies job to job. But be aware of your workers' rights so you know whether or not you're getting taken advantage of. Now, generally, if you work on a stat, so if you work on Victoria Day, you get time and a half, okay? So that means you get paid 1.5 times your normal rate. So you can calculate this a number of different ways, okay? You could do your hours times 1.5. And on a 4-hour shift, you actually get paid for 6 hours worth of time. You could take your wage and multiply it by 1.5, which means you get your hourly wage plus half of that hourly wage, and you are actually getting paid expedited hourly wage. It doesn't matter which way, but then you're only multiplying by 4, right? Here you're multiplying by your basic wage. It's just you could change one of them. So what we can do is we just write this in one equation. We go, okay, $12.35 per hour times 4 hours times 1.5. Because that way you're only multiplying by the 1.5 once. And you end up with general wage and then times 1.5. So in this case, you make $74.10 because your hours still cancel with your hours. So time and a half is great. Double time is amazing. There is a plus to working hourly, and that is when you do get those rates like that, because they can add up real fast. So if Steve works 10 hours at $14.50 an hour and gets double time for any hours over 8, well, this happens a lot. If you work a little bit of overtime, you get paid more. So if you get double time for hours over 8, first you need to figure out, well, how many hours over 8 did Steve work? Take your 10, subtract 8. That's 2 hours of overtime. So you're going to take your 8 hours and you're going to multiply by your basic rate, $14.50. That's going to give you your hourly rate for that's going to give you your dollar amount for 8 hours of work. Cancel, cancel. You're going to take your 2 hours, you're going to multiply it by your $14.50 wage, but then you get double time. So you're going to multiply whatever you got there by 2. So in the end, you get 8 times $14.50, which gives you $116. But then you get 2 times $14.50, but then times 2, so you get another bonus $58, and add those things together, and you make a total of $174 on that shift. So double time can be awesome because you can see it literally doubles the amount of money you would make in a regular shift. Let's do another here. So Jazz gets time and a half for any hours over 7.5. She works 12 hours and gets $15 an hour. Okay, so If she works 12 hours and she gets regular wage for 7.5, subtract that, and that means she gets 4.5 hours at double time. Nope, time and a half, not double time. At T.5, we'll say. Okay, that's just from my brain. So that means we'll go, okay, 4.5 times $15 an hour times time and a half, 1.5. And then she gets her 7.5 hours at her regular $15 an hour. So calculate all that up, 7.5 times 15, 7.5 times 15, she makes 112.50 regular, and then 4.5 hours at time and a half, she gets another 101.25. So she almost makes the same amount of money in 4.5 hours that she did in 7.5 because of the time and a half. So you can see that it's helpful to get overtime. If you're offered overtime, I would always suggest take it unless you're burnt out, because that's where the money gets made. A lot of people complain that they have no money, but then also turn down potential overtime opportunities. And obviously that all comes down to your life situation and scenario, but if you're young and have no other things holding you back, if you're offered overtime, take it. It adds up so fast. So what about wage and tips? Tips are amazing, okay? So tips is bonus money, but you should think of it as stuck to your hourly wage, and I'll explain why here in a second. So Jennifer works in a restaurant and makes minimum wage. Now, minimum wage used to be a lot less than it is now. So in this example, we're going to say it's $10.35, okay? She works 5-hour shift. So what is her hourly wage over that 5 hours? Well, $10.35 per hour times 5 hours. She makes $51.75. That's her just hourly wage. She also makes $110 in tips. So that means her total walkaway money for the shift is $151.75. Right? $161.75. Now, before I do the calculation, that's only her money if she doesn't spend her tips, which is why it's really important to save your tips. Not all of them, but most of them, because watch what happens. If she made $161.75 over her shift, if you divide that by the 5 hours that she worked, then her adjusted hourly wage, including the tips she made, was $32.35 per hour. So a much better hourly wage than $10.35. So if you don't save your tips and you just go and spend them all, you're back down to only making $10 an hour. So be really careful that you are keeping track of your tips, because you don't want to just spend them all on clothes and shoes and food and other life enjoyments. You want to make sure that you put them aside to pay your bills, pay your rent, your mortgage. So consider that when you're keeping your tips. Pay yourself first, because it really impacts your hourly wage. Almost triple, it's triple the regular wage due to her tips. So if you just erase those, you're in for a lot of hurt. So be aware of that. So let's do one more. So Sheldon makes $74 in tips and works 5 hours at $12 an hour. How much does he take home? What's his updated hourly wage? So again, $12 an hour times 5 hours is $60, but then also $74 in tips. So take home is $134. That's not bad for a 5-hour shift. So what's his updated hourly wage? Well, 134 divided by $5 hours is $26.80. That's his adjusted hourly wage. So that is one way to start looking at ways of earning. We're going to look at salary and commission next.